Hello, and welcome to UnKpopular Opinions, a safe space for fans of BTS and other K pop groups to ask the tough question, what do I think of this? I'm your host, Ginger Nuna, and today I'm going to be giving you an update about UnKpopular Opinions. Well, guys, it's been a while. It has been 3 months since I put out an episode. And to some of you, that might just be like, well, yeah, sometimes you take a long time between episodes. And to some of you, that might be, oh, where have you been? And I just wanted to give you an update. This is going to be the last episode. Maybe forever, maybe for now. I honestly don't know. But I wanted to have this final episode to let you guys know one, that the podcast is going on hiatus, but also to let you know why. So, the reason that I wanted to let you know that the podcast is going on hiatus is because I know for me as a podcast listener, I really struggle when I find a podcast that I enjoy and then all of a sudden it just stops. And there isn't any kind of wrap up. And sometimes you wait weeks, months, and in the case of the Tobolowsky files, I waited years to hear anything about that podcast. And I don't want you guys to be sitting and waiting. I want you to know what's going on. So that's why I decided to record what will be the last episode. For now, question mark, I don't know. So, the reason I'm ending the podcast, there are a couple of reasons. The first reason is I don't know where to go from here, if I'm being completely honest. So, for my last episode, I got to interview Melanie Fontana, and that was huge for me, both as a podcaster, but also just as a K pop fan and a BTS fan. Being able to get her side of the story, to get a little bit more of a behind the scenes look of what happens when you're creating K-pop. That episode is something I am incredibly proud of. And I don't want to put out something substandard after that. It makes me think of Usain Bolt. Usain Bolt, up until last year, was the fastest man in the world. He had tons of gold medals, tons of world records, and he announced that he was retiring. And during his last race, he came in third. And I can't imagine how that feels for him to be the best in the world and then at the very last moment, just be the third best for that race. And I didn't want that to happen for myself. I wanted to go out with a bang. I wanted to go out on top. I wanted to go out feeling good. So I've been thinking about doing this for a while. In fact, there was a point where a few weeks ago, I wrote an entire episode, recorded it, edited it, uploaded it, and then promptly took it down an hour later because I just didn't think it was good enough. I didn't want that to be my next step in this podcast because I didn't know where I was going to go after that. And it just was not the follow up that I wanted to my Melanie Fontana interview. It's kind of like being in a relationship that you know in the end it needs to end, it needs to stop. You need to get out of that relationship. Someone has to rip the band aid off. And I guess because the podcast is not a living entity, I have to be the one to rip the band aid off. So this is me ripping off the band aid and saying, you were good to me. You were what I needed when I needed you. I learned from you. I grew as a human. And now it's time for us to part ways. Maybe we'll meet again in the future. Maybe we won't. But either way, I'm feeling good about where we left off. The other reason that I wanted to wrap up the podcast is I started listening to K-pop as a means of escape, something that brought me complete joy. I remember when I found BTS I had this feeling I hadn't felt in over 20 years. It was the feeling of being just completely enamored. I could stay up all night watching BTS content and then go to work in the morning on like 3 hours of sleep and be completely functional. It was this whole, as Dan Savage calls it, new relationship energy. And I was just so in love with not just BTS, but the feeling that I got from listening to their music and taking in their content. And of course, through BTS, I found so many amazing other groups. And I went from being just a BTS fan to being a K pop fan. And I've realized that in having unpopular opinions and sharing them with the world, I've really been taking in all of my K pop content with a very critical lens. And while I think it's important to critically examine the media that we take in, sometimes you just have to enjoy it. And I think this really hit me when I was watching the reality show Mama the Idol. Mama the Idol was on, I think it was TVN. I'm not sure which channel, but it was at the end of last year, the beginning of this year. And it was a series that centered around six women who used to be K pop idols or singers back in quote unquote their previous lives before they did what is expected of a lot of women in Korea. They got married, stayed at home, and had kids. And these six women were invited to form this group and become idols again. I mean, it's a temporary group because of geography. Some of the women don't live in Korea anymore, but it gave them this opportunity to relive their golden years, if you will, to re examine what they loved doing and what they've lost in their lives. And when I was first watching this series, I was really watching it very critically and writing down sound bites and thinking about, like, okay, how am I going to form an episode around this? And while I was doing that, I was about maybe 2 or 3 episodes in. I realized I wasn't feeling anything. And I thought, that's really sad because for this specific show should and ultimately did resonate with me the most out of any K pop program that I've watched because I am a mom. I am in my 30s. I know what it's like to give up something that you love in order to have a family. And when I was initially watching this with unpopular opinions in mind, I didn't have the chance to really feel all of the emotions, both that the show was putting out, but also that I needed to feel. And so when I stopped watching the show with a critical lens and the thought of, I'm going to share my opinions on this, I was able to enjoy it. And it was a very healing show. As a wife and mother, I felt very seen and validated. And I laughed a lot. And during the finale, the final episode, I cried so much. I had watched the entire series while sitting in Starbucks, and something told me, you really shouldn't watch the finale while sitting in Starbucks. And I'm really glad I listened to my gut instinct because I don't know what would have happened if I'd watched that in Starbucks because I was a sobbing mess. And I highly recommend the show Mama the Idol, or it's also known as My Mom is an Idol. You'll have to find a bootleg copy on the internet and really be confident that your computer isn't going to get any viruses. But if you have a Mac like I do and you feel pretty confident that you're not going to be getting a lot of malware, I highly suggest watching this series because even if you're not a mom, it was incredibly eye opening. The audience was made up of rookie idols. So all of these rookie idols had grown up wanting to be these women. And watching the rookies be so touched by these performances, I realized that this show wasn't just great for women who were my age, this was also a great way for younger people to understand what their parents have given up and that their parents are people who had lives and dreams and maybe had to make adjustments. And it's not about guilting anyone, it's about understanding each other better. So, long and the short of it, I highly recommend that series. I'm not going to put a link to it in the show notes just because I don't want you to get a virus, but if you are so inclined and really want to find it, look for Mama the Idol English sub and pray that your computer doesn't get a virus. So, yeah, that is why I am wrapping up the podcast. I enjoyed it. I had fun. I met some super cool people through it. It brought me even closer together with my best friend. But it's not bringing me joy right now. And I don't really need it anymore right now. Maybe I'll need it again in the future. But for now, I'm ready to say goodbye, or at least see you later. But before I go, I do want to share some unpopular opinions. So, first, Billy had their first comeback a couple of weeks ago. Billy was my ultimate rookie group of 2021. And I'm going to include a link to this in the show notes. And if you're a Spotify listener, the songs for all of the stuff I'm going to talk about will be added at the end of the episode of the Spotify edition of this episode. So Billy had their comeback with this song, Ginga Minga Yo. And this fan cam of one of the members, Suki, went viral. And as a performer, I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. Her face, like her facial work, I I was in awe. I even I tried to emulate it while looking in the mirror just to see, like, can I do this? And I don't think my face works that way. I highly suggest going to the show notes and checking out the link I have for Suki's fan cam because it's just, even if you're not a Billy fan, if you're a K-pop fan, I think you will get something out of watching this performance. Second unpopular opinion I want to share with you. Back in June of last year, I did an episode on LGBTQ plus idols in K-pop. And it wasn't a very long episode. It wasn't a very full episode, mostly because the LGBTQ plus scene in South Korea is still more hush hush than it is in the United States, where I'm from. But last, I believe it was November, it was October or November, a group came out called Lionesses. And Lionesses is the very first all male LGBTQ plus K-pop group. And I've included a link to their music video. Their debut song is called Show Me Your Pride. Watching their performance and reading the lyrics for the music that they've put out is incredibly moving and meaningful. And they have a comeback coming out at the beginning of April. I think the song is called Will You Be My Groom? So I definitely suggest keeping an eye out on Lionesses. They're not your typical K-pop group. They, at this point, don't dance. And their musical style is, I don't even know how to describe it because there are points where it's operatic, there are points where it's pop, but just the value of the art that these four people are putting out into the world is so important and so beautiful. So I highly suggest checking out Lionesses. Third unpopular opinion. Something I love about K-pop is that it has also opened up my eyes to other forms of pop. I had never really listened to J-pop or T-pop or any other Asian pop music before I found K-pop. And of course, when you imbibe enough K-pop on YouTube, they'll start to suggest things to you that aren't actually K-pop. One of my favorite groups is actually a Mando pop group, Produce Pandas. And I never would have found them if I hadn't started listening to K-pop. But my most recent obsession is a Q-pop group. Q-pop is from Kazakhstan, and I adore this group. They're called Alpha, and it's a group of 5 guys. And I just love their music. And I also really enjoy being with them from the beginning of their careers because I think it's a lot like being a BTS fan at the beginning of their career, where I don't speak Kazakh. I don't know what they are saying. And there aren't English translations for any of their stuff. It's either closed captioned in Kazakh or translated into Russian. And so I don't know what these people are saying, but their music is so good. So I'm going to add my favorite music video performance of theirs to the show notes. And my fourth UnKpopular opinion, I talked a little bit earlier about Mama the Idol. The group that came from that is called Mama Dole or Mama Idol or MMD. And their song Ooh Ah Hip, it's just, it's so catchy. I love this song. And the lyrics are so good. Something about being like, I'm a mom of 3 and I'm an idol or something like that. It's just incredibly empowering. And the music video is gorgeous. It's not even really a music video, it's a performance video. So I've included a link for that. I really suggest checking it out, even though we'll probably never get any more music from this group, which is a total shame. What they brought to K-pop is so important, especially because I think in all entertainment, but especially what we've seen with K-pop, being very focused on youth, to have all of these women who range from, I think the youngest was 33 and the oldest was 41. So these are women almost in their mid 30s to their early 40s and showing that they are still talented and sexual and human, for lack of a better word. I think it would be awesome for you to check out their music video and their song. The last thing I want to leave you with is this. Try to treat everyone in the world the way you treat your favorite idol. So, what I mean by that is try to cut people some slack, try to give people grace. Don't be nasty on the internet to other people, especially other people who proclaim to be fans of the same group you're a fan of. It's one thing to educate people, it's another to harm people and send death threats and call each other names. And I'm pretty sure if you're listening to this podcast and you've gotten this far, you don't do this shit anyway. But I just want to put it out there just to make sure that you want to take care of strangers as much as you take care of your idols. Your idols are technically strangers. You have one last time, parasocial relationship with them, but they are strangers. The amount of slack that you would cut your favorite idol, give to other people. I know that there are times where idols do things that aren't cool, like they use a racial slur or they use someone's religion as an aesthetic. And when you're a fan of that group or that idol, it's really easy to just let it go or to at least say, this is a learning opportunity, learn from it, and let's move on. Do the same thing with other people, both K-pop fans and not K-pop fans. Just cut each other some slack. But I also want you to treat yourself the way you would treat your favorite idol. It's easy to be super hypercritical of your physical appearance. And think that every little thing that is different about you is wrong. It's not. Remember how enamored you are with that little gap in Jimin's tooth and his front teeth where he has that little bit of an overlap? People are obsessed with that. They love that. They love Taeyong's moles on his elbow that make a shape of an elephant. All of these things that these idols, as people, might feel self conscious about. As fans, we think they're beautiful and we love them. Do the same thing for yourself. Look at yourself the way you look at these idols and say, yeah, this part about me is different. And I fucking love it. Thanks, everybody, for coming with me on this journey of UnKpopular Opinions. I might be back. I might not. So instead of goodbye, I'll just say, see you later. And of course, don't forget to keep questioning.